Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om. 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 Parthaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Gratitam Purana Munina Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitaamritavarshiniim Bhagavatim Ashtadashaadhyayiniim Amba Tvamanusandatami Bhagavadgite Bhavadveshiniim Namostute Vyasa Vishala Buddhe Pullaravindayatapatra Yena Tvaya Bharata Taila Purna Prajvalito Jnanamaya Pradipaha Prapanna Parijataya Totra Vitraikapanaya Jnanamudraya Krishnaya Geetamrita Duhe Namah Sarvopanishado Gavo Dugdha Gopalanandanaha Partho Vatsa Sudhir Bhokta Dugdham Geetamritam Mahat Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsa Chanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum Bhishmadrona Tatajayatra Jala Gandhara Nilotpala Shalyagrahavati Kripena Vahani Karnena Velakula Ashwathama Vikarna Ghora Makara Duryodhana Vartini Sudhirna Kalu Pandavairana Nadi Kaivartaka Keshavaha Parashariya Vachas Saroja Mamalam Geethartha Gandhodkatam Nanakyanaka Kesaram Harikatha Sambodhana Bodhitam Loke Sajjana Shatpadairaharaha Pepiyamanam Muda Bhuyat Bharata Pankajam Kalimala Pradhamsina Shreyase Mukhaṁ karoti vācālam paṅgum laṅghayate girim yatkripātamaham vande paramanandamadhavam yam brahma varunendra rudra marutaha stunvanti divyaistavaihi vedais sāṅgapadakramopaniಷದೈರ್ gayanti yam samagaha Dhyanavasthita tadgatena manasa Pashyanti yam yogino Yasyantam na vidu Surasuragana Devaya tasmai namaha Devaya tasmai namaha Devaya tasmai namaha. We are studying from the 10th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, the chapter called Vibhuti Yoga. Vibhuti Yoga, that means the glories of the divine, the yoga of the glories of the divine. When we know the qualities or the important features of a particular thing, then we are attracted towards it. Suppose we know of someone who has got excellent qualities of beauty, of honesty and things like that, we are attracted towards him or her. But if we know that a person has got some bad qualities, naturally we are not inclined to become friends with such a person. This is human tendency. Always we try to gravitate towards the type of person that we are. If I am good, then I will try to be with good people, and if I am wicked, I will try to be with wicked people. So, but here Sri Krishna is revealing to us the fact that He is in everything. God is in everything, and that He has indeed become everything. So Vibhuti means the qualities. So He has just chosen a few of the qualities which are very prominent. Sri Ramakrishna used to say that wherever you see some sterling qualities, somebody may be a great musician, somebody may be a great dancer, somebody may be a great scholar. So Sri Ramakrishna used to say, when you see such sterling qualities, know that there is a special manifestation of the divine in such places and in such persons. So here we say Sri Krishna is trying to reveal some of his divine glories, or he is giving us an inkling about some of the divine glories, and when we see them, we recognize them as coming from the divine. So we have studied up to the 8th verse. In the 8th verse, Sri Krishna says, Aham sarvasya prabhavo mattas sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajante mam buddha bhava samanvitaha. I am the source of all things. From me all these go forth. Knowing thus, the wise ones worship me, being filled with ecstatic fervor. I am the source of all things, Sri Krishna says. That a jnani or a realized soul feels that everything emanates from God and goes back to the divine. It comes from the divine and it goes back to the divine. The earth rotates around the sun by the divine will. Just like the branches and leaves, etc. of a tree emanates from a seed. In the same way, everything emanates from the divine itself. Knowing this, that means having a deep knowledge of this, without having any doubt about this. See, this is one thing which we always face. When we are in a doubtful mood, we tend to underestimate the value or the greatness of the divine. Therefore, Sri Krishna is trying to say that no, everything really emanates from me. When the wicked also emanate from me. Doesn't mean that we need to go and embrace the wicked, but we have to keep a distance, no doubt, but recognize that there is divine in such a person also. We have to appeal to the divine being. Excuse me. So says Buddha, the wise people. What is Buddha? Means the wise people. And he says Bhava Samanvitaha, one who is possessed of deep loving consciousness. That is called as Bhava Samanvitaha. One who is possessed of deep loving consciousness will be able to understand the meaning of these words. That is the idea. Deep loving consciousness. That it is not just a shallow love, I love you, you love me. No, it is a very deep one. One will be able to give up oneself for the object that one loves. That is the idea. So, all the time one will have this knowledge that everything indeed is the divine. Sri Ramakrishna used to say that, used to give an example. There was the Nahabat, the music tower in Dakshineshwar where he lived. And every morning and evening, music would be played from there. The Shehnai music and all that would be played from there. There would be at least two musicians. One would keep the drone on, like the Tanpura. When we have the Tanpura, there is the drone always is playing. And the other player, the other musician, will be creating the ragas or the different tunes out of that. So, the melodies are played through the several notes. Both are essential. The drone is also essential, and of course, the several notes that are played by the musician is also essential for a perfect music. So therefore, Sri Krishna here he says, Buddha bhava samanvita. You may have buddhi, you may have the understanding, but it should be tempered with deep loving consciousness. It should be covered, as it were, with deep loving consciousness. It might not be just dry. So that is what he says. Buddha bhava samanvita. One who has this loving consciousness. That is to say, there should be a combination of the intellect, the head, and the heart, the loving personality. Both of these, head and heart, should be there. That is what he says. If you combine both of these things, buddhi, that is intelligence and understanding, as well as a deep abiding love towards the divine, then you will understand the meaning of these verses. Then says in the 9th verse, Macchitta madgata prana bodhayanta parasparam kathayantascha mam nityam tushyanti cha ramanti cha. Macchitta madgata prana. Macchitta, with minds engrossed in me. Mat means me, in me. Madgata prana. Prana. Prana means the vital energies. Madgata, involved. Madgata means involved in me. All the energies are involved in me. My mind is involved in the divine. My energies are deeply involved in the divine. And then parasparam bhavayantaha, enlightening mutually enlightening. That is, when you meet a devotee of the Lord, you engage in talk about the divine, not talking everything about the world, but you talk about the divine. Swami Damodarananji used to be here for some time, and he used to say, let us have some holy gossip. He would say, holy gossip. Gossip, everybody likes gossip, but let it be holy gossip. Madghata prana bodhayanta parasparam. Parasparam means mutually enlightening. Then kathayantascha, conversing. Nityam, ever conversing. And tushyanti, feel contented. And ramanti. Tushyanti, ramanti cha. That means feeling delighted. Let me read the running meaning. With their minds engrossed and their vital energies deeply involved in me, they are ever contented and delighted by mutually conversing about me and enlightening each other thereby. Chitta, that means the intellect or the thoughts must be absorbed by the divine, so to say. Or our thoughts, Sri Ramakrishna used to give an example. There is this special sweet in uh, in Bengal called the Rasagulla. Rasagulla is made by cottage cheese, and you take it in hand. There is juice, or there is the sugar syrup, both within and without. It is there. It is also dipped in the juice of, or the sorry, the sugar syrup. There is outside there is sugar syrup, and within also there is sugar syrup. And then uh, if you touch it, you will see that the juice will be, the syrup would be oozing out of that. So, giving this example, Sri Ramakrishna used to say that our minds should be soaked in the syrup of the divine, as it were. Our mind should be like that, the ball that is the uh, cheese ball, Rasagulla, and it should be dipped in the thought of the divine. How to do it? Sri Ramakrishna says, look, necessity it should be there. For example, if you have a toothache, you may be doing all other things, but yet a portion of your mind is always concentrated on your toothache. Similarly, when we have the realization that the divine alone exists, or in other words, the divine is an existential reality, that my whole life must be covered with the divine, then whatever we are doing, a portion of our mind will be dedicated towards the thought of the divine. And once we are a little bit free, the mind will go and sit in that place at the feet of the divine. So that's what is meant by mat chitta. Your mind should be dipped in the thought of the divine. Mat gata prana. Your life force is connected to me, to mine. It gives the example like the fish cannot remain without water. Take the fish out of the water, it will die. Similarly, our life force must be rested in the divine. And it's also said, Yasya Uchvasa Nishvasa. That means one who inhales the divine and also exhales the divine. Inhalation and exhalation is filled with the divine. Soham. Sri Ramakrishna, no, this Swami Vivekananda spoke about this. Swami Vivekananda was once traveling in India, in the forest, and that forest had some tigers. There was a man-eating tiger also over there, and so he was told by another sadhu or a sannyasi that, a few days ago a tiger came and mauled this brother monk of mine, and we were lagging far behind while we were walking, and he was lying there after being mauled. He didn't have any sense at all, but when we came, we could hear this sound, Soham, I am that, emanating out of his body. And those monks narrated this to Swami Vivekananda. So it is indeed possible that such people do exist. Their whole life is filled with the thought that I am the divine, or the divine is within me, Yasya Vichva. So now what we have done is we have placed our prana, our energies in different things. For example, the prana of the children is in play, and the prana of a greedy person is in money and wealth and all that. The prana of a sensual person is in the senses. The prana of a greedy person is in money. The prana of a person who wants name and fame, etc., is centered over there. A prana of a gambler is centered in gambling. So, but for a yogi, his life force is totally focused on God. We have only misplaced the prana in different places. That's why he says, Mat Gata Prana. All life energies are focused on me. Machitta Madgata Prana Bodhayanta Parasparam Bodhayanta. Sri Ramakrishna speaks about three kinds of joy. Three kinds of joy are there, he used to say. One is Vishayananda. Vishaya means the objects of the senses, of the objects of the world, of objects. So he says, those whose whole being is centered in the senses, want to enjoy more and more. So that is also a kind of ananda, it's also a kind of joy, but it is one of the lowest type. And then he says there is something called as bhajana ananda. That means some people are there who constantly want to listen to the music or to the name of the divine. They will be continuously. There are people who want to continuously listen to some divine music, bhajana ananda. And then there is what is called as brahmananda. That is the pure sattvic joy, sattvic meditation. They take their real source of enjoyment is in meditation, and it is pure. So that is what he says. So here, our life force must be centered in either bhajanananda, that is recitation and singing, etc., or in brahmananda. Then only we can really enjoy this life that God has given to us. If our mind is focused only on the objects of the world, then we will not be able to really enjoy it. Parasparam bodhayanta. When you meet like-minded people, try to converse about God. Of course, we should not talk about God to people who are very skeptic and who will even destroy our faith in the divine. We should not unnecessarily engage in conversation. Parasparam bodhayanta. This is one thing which Vedanta talks about. Swadhyaya pravachanapyam na pramaditavyam. A student is asked, look here, you should not give up these two things. What is it? Swadhyaya, self-study, studying of the scriptures, studying your own mind. All of this is meant by Swadhyaya. Swadhyaya, you engage yourself in Swadhyaya and Pravachana. Pravachana means whatever you know, you talk about it, or you teach it to the others who do not have knowledge about it. Even you may not have to give lectures, but at least you can talk about it to others who are interested in that subject. Bodhayantaha parasparam. So, when Sri Ramakrishna had the cancer of the throat, he could hardly speak. But yet, when people would come, he would start talking. Dr. Mahendralal Sarkar, his physician, he used to tell Sri Ramakrishna, look here, if you talk much, your disease will be aggravated. You should not talk much. And then he would add, but you may make an exception when I come. You can talk to me. He loved to hear Sri Ramakrishna. So even in that state, where he could not eat anything and pus would ooze out of his throat, yet he would not stop teaching to sincere devotees about God, talking about God. And when he would do so, he would forget himself. A minute ago, when he was not talking, he would be suffering and he would be exclaiming with excruciating pain. But after some time, when he starts talking about God, he would completely forget himself. So that is what he means by here. Kathayantascha mam nityam bodhayantaha parasparam kathayantascha mam nityam tushyanti. Tushyanti means contented. Tosha means contentment, not complaining. Life gives us both joys and miseries. It is a mixture. We cannot just choose one and avoid the other. It is definitely there. Only it is waiting at the other corner. Therefore, tushyanti, be contented with whatever comes to us. We should make a lot of progress, but accept whatever comes to you. That is the idea that Sri Krishna is emphasizing over here. And such people who are tushyanti, who are ever contented, are incapable of complaining. It is against their very nature to have any complaints about life. Tushyanti is a very high state of spiritual achievement. Then Ramanti. Ramana means joy, enjoyment. Their enjoyment is not in the senses, their enjoyment is in the higher aspects of life. As I said earlier, it is not in Vishayananda, but in Bhajanananda and Brahmananda. Because they know that God is within me and outside of me. Sri Ramakrishna used to give an example. The needle of the compass always points towards the north. It cannot be otherwise. If it is not pointing, then there is some fault with the compass. The compass will always point towards true north. So in the same way, the thought of the spiritual aspirant would always be directed towards the divine. Always. If you read the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, there Yam describes Sri Ramakrishna as a person who is filled with Ananda, who is enveloped with Ananda. In Bengali he used to say, Anandamay Purush. It's a beautiful expression over there. It means full of Ananda. As I earlier said, like the Rasagulla, one is covered with joy, with thought of the divine. So, Sri Krishna says, with their minds engrossed and their vital energies deeply involved in me, they are ever contented and delighted by mutually conversing about me and enlightening each other thereby. Tesham satatayuktanam bhajatam pritipurvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yenamam upayanti te. To those who serve me with delight and are ever steadfast in spiritual communion, I bestow intuitive understanding by means of which they come to me. Sri Krishna gives this assurance. We are all struggling to raise our mind to a higher level. At least all spiritual aspirants are struggling. Sometimes we forget about it, but when we become conscious about it, we try to raise our mind to a higher level. So Sri Krishna assures, well, if you make the effort, definitely. So he says, Satata Yuktanam, to those who is connected to me. Satata, that means all the time, constantly. Satata Yukta, constantly in connection with me. He uses the term Yukta. It comes from the root Yuj. That means to join, to combine. So Satata Yukta, always joined to me. Your mind is focused on me and it is joined with me. That is the idea. A yogi is one who has an unbroken connection to the Lord, like the river is flowing from the mountains and it is an unbroken stream. It is constantly flowing towards the ocean. In the same way, the, the thought of a yogi is constant. But then a question is asked, how can we have to constant remembrance of God while we are doing all the things in this world? We have to carry on with our responsibilities. We must perform all our responsibilities. How can we do that? So Swami Madhavanandaji, one of the disciples of Holy Mother, who was later one of the presidents of the Ramakrishna order, when this question was asked to him, he said he was the General Secretary of the Ramakrishna order at that time. So he was in his office and he showed to this young person, now see what is here. And it was all ruled notebook over there in front of him, and it was dots, several dots together making line. So, for signatures and all that, you put those dotted lines. So there were these dotted lines in that. So from a distance he saw and said, oh, that is a straight line, Swamiji. That is a straight line, Swami. I said, no, come and have a closer look. Oh, those are several dots joined together. They are all together, so it appears as if it is one straight line. The Swami then said, look here, there is slight gap between one dot and the other. Very minuscule dots are there. Now, this is how you should do. Just imagine that those dots are the actions that you have to perform. And then there are some certain gaps also. There is a certain gap between one action and the other action. If you can think about it, or if you can think about the divine during those gaps, then what happens? While you are working, you are connected with the divine. One dot is connected with the other dot through a gap, and that gap also must be filled in with the thought of the divine. Then both of your actions will be connected. A very beautiful way of explaining. So that is what it is. Yukta means to connect oneself with the divine. Tesham satata yuktanam. And then he says, Preeti purvakam bhajatam. Preeti. When you think of the divine, do not do so grudgingly. Many people, they go to church or they go to the temple, and then with great disinterest they participate in the proceedings over there. If they can, they will gossip with the others sitting next to themselves. But if you love the divine, then you will not do so grudgingly. So the thought of a yogi is constant. As I gave the other example, like a drone, or that the one stringed noise that is coming always from the drone. So that from the tanpura. So in the same way, you are connected to the Lord always. Preeti purvakam. That is the most important thing. Love God. Do not fear God. Do not fear God. God is our very own. greater than our parents, greater than our near and dear ones. They are, God is our inner ruler. God is our friend and constant companion. Therefore, Preeti, let there be love in thinking God. There is an example is given. We travel by car. Suppose your car has got faulty suspension. The car is running, but this faulty suspension, which is not properly greased, it will make rattling sound. As the car travels, it will make rattling sound. But inject some grease into it, apply some grease to it, then it becomes smooth. So life in this world is like the rattling car. If we can inject a little bit of preeti, a bit of love towards the divine over there, then it takes over and then life will become smooth. So when I see sometimes the grandparents, when they see their grandchild, their heart jumps with joy, isn't it? So in the same way, that type of joy must well in our heart when we see the divine, maybe in a temple or in a picture. Immediately the thought of the divine must well up with love, not with fear. We must, when we love somebody, then when we see that person, we feel a happiness or a great joy within ourselves. That's what Sri Krishna says here. Preeti purvakam bhajatam. Love God with all your heart, with all your soul, with everything that you possess. Love the divine. So if we do that, what happens? Tam buddhi yogam dadami. To such a person who, two conditions are there. One is satata yuktana, be connected with the Lord all the time. And then secondly, think of the divine with love, with great affection and love. Then tam buddhi yogam dadami. To such a person, I give buddhi yoga. What is buddhi yoga? Here he says intellectual intuition or intuitive understanding. Generally, we live in many levels according to the Vedanta scriptures. We are made of several sheets or coverings. We go through it day in, day and day out. Annamaya, Pranamaya, Manomaya, Vijnanamaya and Anandamaya sheets. Okay? Annamaya. Annamaya means one whose sole concern in life is somehow to get food and enjoy that food and have a very beautiful, healthy body. That's all. Their whole being, their whole day and night is concerned with how to get good food, how to prepare good food, how to eat good food, and how to have a good body. That's all. A beautiful body or healthy body, whatever it is. So that is the only concern, which is generally the concern of an animal. And such people are not anything better than such animals. So Annamaya. Then Pranamaya, bioenergy. Some people are very much concerned with how to keep themselves very fit and fine. Bioenergy. So they, they are in the realm of the pranamaya. Then there is manomaya. Some people are quite inclined to engage themselves in the pleasure of their mind. Watch uh, watch good movies and then enjoy life to its fullest and be very happy mentally. That is manomaya. But there are people, we have all this in our day-to-day life, we go through this every day. Then vijnanamaya, there are certain people who rise higher than this mental level and who are established in the realm of the consciousness, vijnana, knowing things as they are, that means knowing things to its fullest extent, vijnanamaya, who go deeper and deeper into life and its problems and all that, and they understand the essence that is in everything, consciousness. And then there are the others who are, or who have known all of this, who have gone through all of this, but who now do not want to engage in any one of that, but who are to themselves, that is Anandamaya, who enjoy the presence of the divine within themselves. That is Anandamaya Kosha, Anandamaya Sheath. So now Sri Krishna says here, Dadami Buddhi Yogam Tam. To such persons, I bestow this intuitive understanding. That is Vijnanamaya Kosha. He will lead us to the Vijnanamaya Kosha. When we seek him clearly, then the clear thinking and pure reason, pure discriminative knowledge takes over us. Buddhi Yoga is that discriminative knowledge where you can reason what is the right and wrong. You can clearly see things as they are, not what they are. All that their masks are uncovered, and then one gets focused on the divine consciousness that is present everywhere. Tena mam upayante. Such a person will come to me, by means of which they come to me. That is what Sri Krishna promises us here through this verse. This Swami Tapasyananda ji, whose translation I am using here, he has placed a wonderful commentary on this. He says, the exact meaning of Buddhi Yoga is difficult to arrive at. It must mean the rousing of a new power of understanding, that power of discrimination, which may be described as intuitive power. The word intuition is a very treacherous and deceptive word. Many people use it for irrational and arbitrary conclusion of theirs, which are the mere projections of their desire nature. That is, they are always concerned with their objects of desire, and they will say it comes from my intuition. No, a true intuition can come only in the mind of one who is pure and free from desires and passions. He must be a satata yukta, that is, one whose inner life is fully integrated by the practice of self-control and mental discipline. The so-called intuitions of others are only projections of their desires by way of wish fulfillment. We see this day in and day out. People say, oh, that is my intuition, that is my intuition. No. The mind must be free from all desires born of sensate life. The mind should become free from modes based on such desires. It must become molded into a single mode of aspiration for truth. Bhajatam priti purvakam, or yearning for him with wholehearted love. To such persons the Lord gives Buddhi Yoga or intuitive power. It's a new capacity of understanding. Just as sense powers and rationality give us capacity to know certain vistas of reality, intuition gives a new view of things dominated by the divine presence. It is entirely different from the so-called intuitions of desire-bound people. See, people say, I have this kind of intuition, I have that intuition, and all that. So, Swami Atmeshananda here in his commentary refutes all of that and says, it is of no use at all. Real intuition, real understanding of something comes only when one has these two things, satata yuktanam, connected to the Lord at all times, and priti purvakam bhajami. That means worshipping or thinking of the divine, serving the divine with love, with intense love. The love that does not know any bounds, the love that does not know any hatred, that the love that does not hate anyone, nor does it envy anyone at all. So that is the kind of preeti, that is the kind of affection, or that is the kind of love that Sri Krishna is talking in this verse. Tesham satata yuktanam preeti purvakam bhajatam. And I give that buddhi yoga to such people. So we will conclude here with this verse. We will take up the rest of the verses later. Om Shantakaram Bhujagashayanam Padmanabham Suresham Vishwadharam Gaganasadrisham Meghavarnam Shubhangam Lakshmikantam Kamalanayanam Yogirithyanagamyam Vande Vishnum Bhavabhayaharam Sarvalokaikanatha. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. Sri Ramakrishna.